Hello, everyone. Welcome to another Wednesday drawing session with me, Frank Cho. There's my trusty Pentel mechanical pencil with zero point 0.7 HB millimeter lead and my kneaded eraser. And here's my favorite paper to draw on, Strathmore Bristolboard 300 series with vellum surface. Today, I have a treat for you. Since I just came back from Florida not too long ago, and really enjoy the warm Florida swampy weather, I decided to draw the lizard fighting Spider-Man, or Spider-Man fighting the lizard. Now, as you guys may know, Spider-Man is my favorite superhero of all time. And I just absolutely love Spider-Man. When I first read him as a little kid, it just connected with me right away. And Spider-Man, I feel that Spider-Man is the only superhero that, should I say, the Spider-Man universe is the only universe that seemed to match Batman's universe, because Batman has an absolutely fantastic gallery of rogues, and I feel Spider-Man is very similar. He has like an excellent gallery of rogues, and in that gallery is the lizard. Now, I love the lizard because I'm a big dinosaur freak, and I just simply love just drawing dinosaurs. So drawing the lizard fighting Spider-Man is just definitely well within my wheelhouse. So the pose that I have for the lizard, not the wizard, um, is it's very it's very cool, because like I had this image of the lizard just kind of like looking for Spider-Man, and he's kind of wheeling around as Spider-Man's about to jump on his back. So that's the image that I have right away. And with that image in mind, I just basically just start sketching out the basic general pose. And it takes some practice. I mean, like when you have two figures kind of interacting with each other, you kind of have to like almost act yourself. I mean, I'm sure, I think all the artists does this. When I draw something, when I draw action, something like that, I actually act out the pose. And so, so if you see me kind of like, like moving my head, and all that, and my body, just contorting my body around, that's me just kind of like getting into the mindset of the figure work. Uh, so so yeah. So when you draw something, try to get into the mental image, and basically just kind of act out the pose and all that. It really does help with your drawing. So with the lizard pose, I want the lizard kind of like crouching forward, and then he's suddenly turning around. And so you do that by you show that motion by curving the tail back. So you have this kind of a circular pose, or circular composition. So when you're drawing superheroes, well, me anyway, I like to put them in like a very action centric pose. I don't want them just standing straight. That's boring as hell. So I like to draw like my figures in action. Kind of they're kind of stooped over, or they're like they're twisting and turning their bodies. So that's always fun. So with that in mind, I just start doodling the lizard. Now the lizard, I'm actually kind of like going off model a bit, because the lizard had a very human-esque face, but with my lizard, I kind of made his face look more like a dinosaur. So I basically elongated the features. So it's kind of like a modified T-Rex slash a raptor. Now the comic book lizard, he does look like he has a very human-esque face, which I wasn't a big fan of. But I love the lizard character, but I always felt that the lizard should be more dinosaur-like. Now the lizard was created by Steve Ditko and Stan Lee in Amazing Spider-Man number 5. No, is it number 6? And basically the doctor Curtis Connor, who became the lizard, was a basically a medical doctor or a scientist who got his arms blown off while he was in during the war. And then so ever since he came back with a missing arm, he's been studying how to regenerate that arm back. So he started really experimenting with lizards because they had the the power to regenerate limbs, missing limbs. So he basically, if I remember correctly, he tested on some animal subjects and they regrew their limbs, and so he decided to take the serum himself, and he did regrow his arm, but ultimately change him into this reptilian figure, the lizard, and Spider-Man basically came and basically found an antidote and reverted him back to Dr. Connors. So there I am drawing the Spider-Man, not Spider-Man, the lizard's head. You can really see that I'm really kind of leaning into the whole the dinosaur design. And working on that tattered lab coat. So that's actually a really cool thing about the lizard. I've always thought that this reptilian figure wearing a lab coat was tattered lab coat was always pretty cool. It's almost like the Incredible Hulk, the TV Hulk, where he's just his clothes are all torn off or in tatters because he's just too big for it. So people ask me, what's the hardest thing to draw? The hardest thing to draw in comics is people in regular street clothes. I mean, it's kind of hard to understand that, but it really is. The hardest thing for me to draw is just people in regular street clothes doing regular stuff, like sitting down, eating, and drinking and stuff. You know, drawing two muscular dudes just punching each other, that's easy. I could do that in my sleep, but just regular people doing regular stuff, that's just hard, you know. I mean, I could do it. It's just that I guess it's just so boring that I get no joy out of it. So there's that lab coat again. I'm just kind of drawing it, having it billow out, like a cape almost. And I'm just drawing the pants, the tattered pants. Again, people ask me, so how do you know where to put the crinkle, the wrinkles on the pants and the shirt and all that? Um, you basically kind of get a feel for it once you've drawn it after a while. I mean, a lot of the stuff. If I can't see it mentally, I basically use reference. So I actually have like a mirror in my studio, or a mirror nearby my studio, and I would basically pose myself to get uh, the right pose or the figure. So oftentimes I would take pictures of my arms and legs just to see how the clothes are, the wrinkles kind of falls on my limbs and stuff like that. And there's that sweeping, really nice sweeping tail that comes out. So if you look at the overall pose, you see the lizard is kind of like wheeling, turning around, and drawing that tail in that sweeping circular motion. It kind of helps the reader's eye follow that tail into the Spider-Man figure. And also, that circular tail kind of give you the illusion of action. So once I've kind of got the basic pose down, I kind of like lightly erase it. It's mainly just to get rid of the all the stray marks and all that, and by lightly erasing it, I can see the underlying drawing, and then I go back in and really start refining it. So yeah, I often like erase more than I draw sometimes, which is fine. I mean, the kneaded eraser is great because you don't completely erase it. You're just kind of erasing most of it, but still leave the underlying drawing intact. So unlike a real dinosaur, I've kind of like didn't make the since he's a lizard, since he's half human, I didn't make that face too long. You know, so I kind of blunted the snout, blunted the snout a bit. So he has have a leaning more toward like a human facial feature. There's the pectoral muscle, and where the how the muscle is connected. Now shading is very important. So I have the light source in mind. So the light source is it's kind of like 12 o'clock. I mean, that's pretty much all my light source. My light source is always like 11 o'clock, 12 o'clock, 1 o'clock position. So and then by having that roughly in mind, I know where to cast a shadow. So since the lizard is kind of stooping forward, you're gonna see me putting a lot of the shadow from the chest down. So I'm just kind of rubbing the pencil, purposely smudging it to give it that nice kind of gray tone. I noticed that the eraser on my mechanical pencil is gone, so I decided to yeah. So when I open up the eraser thing, all the lead kind of spilled out. So I basically lightly erase the where the carotid artery is coming from the neck. So there I am, just kind of adding more neck veins and stuff like that. Give it the illusion of a 3D. Drawing the torso, the ab muscle. There's the intercostal muscle, giving it a six pack. Just smudging it, just giving that nice kind of gray tone. I know people, you guys are asking what is it about Spider-Man that I love? So when I was a little kid, I discovered in my local library, I grew up in Beltsville, Maryland, and I live right down the street from Beltsville Library. and they had a copy of the origins of Marvel Comics, and in that it was a collection book the of Marvel first issues of Marvel Comics. You had the Fantastic Four #1, the Hulk one, Spider Man one, Thor, and all those stuff. And besides the #1 issue, they also had, I guess, the best of that particular title for whatever reason. And so after Amazing Fantasy 15, which was the original, the origin story of Spider Man, after that reprint, the next Spider Man story was The Amazing Spider Man #72, where the Spider Man fought the Shocker. If I remember the title, is called Rocked by the Shocker. And it was illustrated by John Romita Sr. And that just connected with me in such a deep way. John Romita Sr.'s artwork just completely just, I don't know what it is about him. It might have been just his pretty girls that he drew, because he actually worked on a lot of those teenage love stories. And so he was really renowned for drawing these really beautiful classical female figures and faces. And like that might have been it. And also he made Peter Parker this, this really kind of like an everyman kind of, this good looking, decent guy. And so whatever reason, it just, that story connected with me. And John Romita Sr. became my Spider-Man artist, the Spider-Man artist for me. I mean, Steve Ditko was great, but his artwork is a little too wonky, a little too grotesque, I guess, for me to really get into it. Because, I like classically drawn stuff, and John Romita Sr. had it in spades. So, although I love Steve Ditko's Spider-Man, I connected with John Romita Sr.'s, his version of Spider-Man. So ever since then, all the Spider-Man I draw is basically modeled after John Romita Sr. So yeah, I remember the Shocker. That was a fun story. Do I still have a copy? Man, I haven't read that in decades. Oh man. So anyway, because of that book, I fell in love with Spider-Man. Now, the very first Spider-Man comic book that I ever bought with my own money was Amazing Spider-Man 238. That's the one with the Hobgoblin is ripping Spider-Man's costume in half, which was a great, absolutely fantastically great cover. And that issue really meant a lot to me because that was the very first Spider-Man comic book that I bought with my own money. And it was illustrated by John Romita Jr. and inked by John Romita Sr. So it was like a father and son team. And so back then, John Romita Jr. was just really rocking it. This is before his style became a little bit more abstract and everyone started having this weird square head and stuff like that. This is John Romita Jr. right after his Iron Man run, which was absolutely great, and he was just absolutely rocking it on Spider-Man. I mean, like his Spider-Man, his run on Spider-Man in the early '80s, I thought was just absolutely spectacular. And then to have it inked by his father, who was, in my opinion, the greatest Spider-Man artist of all time, just made that issue so much better, And so yeah, that's the Spider-Man issue. That was the Spider-Man issue that I really got into Spider-Man, and I just started collecting Spider-Mans ever since. So like I said before, so the light source is in the 11, 12, 1 o'clock range. And then so anything that falls below that will be in in the shadows. So if you guys get a chance, want to know how to really draw comics, the book that really helped me was How to Draw the Marvel Way by John Buscema. So John Buscema, so like basically the two big artists of Marvel in the 60s and 70s, or actually say four big artists, was Jack Kirby, Jack the King Kirby, the man who basically built Marvel and never really got his credit for it. So Jack Kirby was basically the architect of the Marvel universe, and then you have John Romita Sr., whose run on Spider-Man was actually fantastic, and he later became the art director at Marvel's. So he basically made sure all the artists stayed on model and all that. Unlike today, where everyone just draws in such a weird, crazy style, which really sucks. I mean, it's good and bad, but I prefer that people kind of stay on model. So so John Romita Sr. was the art director at Marvel for a while. And then you have Kirby, Romita Sr., and John Buscema. And John Buscema was another powerhouse, one of my favorite artists of all time. His run on Conan was just absolutely legendary. And also, I mean, his everything he did was just fantastic. But I loved him in Conan because you could tell John Buscema wasn't a big superhero fan, so he preferred barbarian stuff, and it shows. So and the fourth guy is Steve Ditko. Steve Ditko was the true creator of Spider-Man, in my opinion. He's the one. A lot of the ideas came from Steve Ditko. So those four guys basically built Marvel the way it is, and I'm not discrediting Stan Lee. Stan Lee put the polish in everything, and he was just an absolute brilliant PR guy. But he actually did take credit for stuff that these other guys did, and never corrected the public, which is unfortunate because Stan Lee is a brilliant writer and I guess more of a brilliant editor. But I think he should have given credit to these guys, especially Jack Kirby, because Jack Kirby is the is the brain and power behind all the most of the Marvel creations. So the book that I love, the book that taught me how to draw comics, that I actually just like studied over and over again, was How to Draw the Marvel Way by John Buscema. So John Buscema, if I remember history correctly, in the 70s, he had these night classes, I think, these remedial art classes for Marvel artists at that time. So they could come in and basically sit in this, basically a art class taught by John Buscema. And John Buscema would explain how to pose pictures, how to basically draw a figure in a more dynamic sense and all that, and just gave you this. It's basically an art school. So he taught these classes, So you have guys like, oh God, all those guys from the 70s. Why am I blanking on the names? I think Silvestri, Mark Silvestri, I think, was in it. Bob Hall, maybe even Keith Pollard, and all those guys who kind of were coming up in the 70s, they all took these remedial classes that John Buscema taught just to kind of teach these new guys what the Marvel style is, the Marvel house style is, and all that. So he took all of that. He took these classes that he taught, and all the notes from these classes and drawing example, and he refined it, and then put it, collected into a book, and and then Stanley came in and basically polished it up like Stanley always does. But the genesis of that, how to draw the Marvel way, was basically how John Buscema approached drawing comics and explaining everything from figure work to storytelling and how to make comic book, how to make Marvel comics really stand out. So that was a book that taught me how to be a comic book artist. So I remember picking that up when I was in fourth grade, fifth grade, fourth grade, and I would just I borrowed it from the library and just copied it from page one, repeatedly over and over again all that just until I basically absorbed that book, and then from there I start studying other comic book artists that I love. So like Don Newton, Al Williamson, Frank Frazetta, Neil Adams, Garcia Lopez. Garcia Lopez was another guy who was just absolutely underrated. He's like one of the best artists in the business. So all those guys, so it was from How to Draw the Marvel Way that set the foundation for me, artistic foundation for me, on how to draw comic books, and then from there on, I basically study all these other guys. So yeah, so if you want to learn how to draw comics, go check out the book How to Draw the Marvel Way by John Buscema and Stan Lee. That book was like the Bible to me growing up. So now I have the lizard down. I'm drawing the Spider-Man. So I want to draw Spider-Man just leaping downward, kind of avoiding his tail, the lizard tail whip. And so there's that classic John Romita Sr. Spider-Man eyes. I didn't really care for all these newer guys, like Todd McFarlane and Eric Larson, all those guys. I thought their Spider-Man was just ugly. And they had this weird alien head with no nose, where half their mask was covered in this really weird eyes. So yeah, I just by the time Todd McFarlane took over Spider Man, I just stopped reading Spider Man because I was just not a fan of the his Spider Man design. I'm not saying that Todd sucked or anything. I'm just saying that his Spider Man, his version of the Spider Man wasn't my Spider Man, wasn't my cup of tea. But I did enjoy his. I did appreciate his creation of the Venom character, and Venom was one of those few characters, in my opinion, the few of the modern characters that I really enjoyed drawing. So like my comic knowledge is kind of funny because I start actively collecting comics from 1983 to 1990, and I stopped in 1990 because I went to college, and I couldn't afford comics. And then I came back collecting comics again in 1996, 6 around that time. So I missed entire for like about 5 6 year period. I didn't know what was happening in comics. I was aware of the whole image explosion and all that, but I wasn't paying attention to it because I was too busy going to college. So when I came back to comics, it was like I was like Rip Van Winkle, like, and I never understood why Image Comics was so popular. Um, because I grew up, I grew up reading all these like classic guys, So you have Ramita Senior, John Buscema. John Buscema was a huge influence on me. Neil Adams, Garcia Lopez, all those guys, Al Williamson, Frazetta, all those guys I absolutely just adore. And then when I came back, so you have all these guys like Rob Liefeld, Todd McFarlane, Jim Lee, and all those guys, which I was not a. I mean, yeah. Let's call a spade a spade. I wasn't a big fan of them, because those weren't the guys that I grew up reading. So it's more nostalgia than anything else. And also, I mean, what they did was really good. I mean, they did kind of like took comic industry to next level by infusing a lot of Japanese influence, and mainly Michael Golden and Barry Windsor Smith. So if you see the whole Image era with all those crazy line work, that's all Barry Windsor Smith influence, with a lot of Michael Golden and Arthur Adam drawing sense, which I love. I love Michael Golden and John Arthur Adam, especially Arthur Adam. I think Arthur Adam is just absolutely top notch. I mean, so he should be definitely be given credit as the godfather of Image Comics. But but my taste in comics has always been kind of old fashioned, 1960s and 70s and 80s. So Spider Man has this great hand gestures and all that stuff. So I take time just kind of really focusing on the hand and just the general pose of Spider Man. Spider Man's always like jumping around, leaping, so you got to kind of think of him as like a gymnast. So when you're drawing Spider Man, don't make him stationary. Don't make him just standing around doing nothing. Spider Man, you have to like draw him in these jumping poses and stuff like that. So I guess I mean, every time I draw Spider Man, I always get the same question like, "Who's your favorite Spider Man actor?" Uh, I have to admit, I like Andrew Garfield. I think to me, Andrew Garfield was the best Peter Parker Spider Man. Um, the the reason why I said that is because the last Spider Man movie, No Way Home, where the three Spider Mans were there. Um, so I thought Andrew Garfield, out of the three Spider Mans in that movie, just stood out. I mean, like you could like I wish Andrew Garfield would they would have given him a third Spider Man movie with a better script, because you saw, he did such a brilliant job as Peter Parker and Spider Man. You just saw he just kind of conveys such emotion, such decency, and such goofiness. To me, that's Spider Man. And I thought Andrew Garfield just, in my opinion, completely stole the show. Out of the three Spider-Man. And don't get me wrong, the other two actors, they did absolutely a wonderful job. But to me, Andrew Garfield just kind of like stood out. So I hope they do give Andrew Garfield like his third Spider-Man movie, because I would love to see him as Spider-Man once more. And I wish they would write Spider-Man. If he does get a third movie, I wish they would write him as that Spider-Man from No Way Home. So when you're drawing Spider, also don't make him too muscular, because Spider-Man isn't was never muscular. He's kind of like you know, kind of a very kind of a thin figure. Not too thin, but he's like basically a very limber gymnast. And I just love the sense of humor that Spider-Man had. Love where he's just joking around when he's fighting supervillains. I think that's one of the reasons I love Spider-Man, is because he basically he was a very funny character. And if you guys know my stuff, I'm a big fan of humor. So I think Spider-Man just caught me at that right age, where you have superhero who jokes around. And also there's like a decency. There's like a um, you know he wasn't perfect. That's the word I'm looking for. Peter Parker was not perfect. He had the same problems that we did. Trouble paying the bills, or worrying about school, worrying about our loved ones and stuff like that. So, like, Marvel did a brilliant job of just making Spider-Man Peter Parker just relatable, and make him such a decent character. You know, decent character meaning like an everyday, where his humanity shows despite his superpowers and him just joking around. But there's a sense of like an average man's problem. It's not like Captain America or Superman, where they're just godlike figures, where they what they do is just super serious, and just like the law. you know Peter Parker Spider-Man is just kind of a fun character who wants to do the right thing, help people, and all that. I'm not saying that Superman or Captain America don't want to do that, but to me, they're more elevated. They're more like they're almost like untouchable. They're just too good. Where Spider-Man has his flaws, but despite his flaws, he's always trying to do the right thing, even though he messes up and bite him in the ass. But he tries. So once I got the figure work down, I'm just going ahead and just kind of erasing, adding the highlights, and just darkening the shadows and stuff like that. I'm just adding more of a dust cloud from the battle. More dust cloud. yeah, at this point, I'm pretty much finished with the figure, and I'm just adding, just the extra details and just darkening the shadows and reinforcing the line work, erasing highlights and stuff like that. Actually, it just turned out pretty good. It always surprises me, even though when I'm drawing this, how it turns out, because I have no idea if it's gonna turn out bad or good. So I'm just adding more, texture on the rocks. Reinforcing the lines. Yeah, I had a blast drawing this. So there it is. The amazing Spider-Man fighting the lizard.